Now, speaking for the majority of us that do own and hold on to the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF or ticker symbol SCHD, we're not necessarily buying into this ETF to earn massive dividends from day one or necessarily to get rich off of the growth this ETF offers, at least in the short term. But the idea is that this ETF, at least historically, has offered so much dividend growth, making investors over time at least more and more in dividend income year after year, and we're talking by a lot. Now, this is one of the main reasons that I personally own several thousand shares of this ETF as a 32-year-old investor. Because even though with a few thousand shares, this ETF still isn't paying me a massive amount of income, come 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that's all most likely going to change. So in this video, I have a treat for you guys. I built out a custom SCHD dividend tracker, which you can get down below for free. It's the first link down below in my description. And I'm going to go through and share with you guys what the next 40 dividend payouts, yes, 40 dividend payouts, 10 years of SCHD dividends could potentially look like based off of multiple different scenarios. So I promise you, if you hold onto this ETF, you're definitely going to want to stick around because some of these numbers are going to get you very, very motivated. If you are a dividend investor who wants to level up your portfolio, you need to be tracking your dividend income consistently. And that's why I created the perfect dividend tracker that I've used to scale my dividend income up to all-time highs over the last year. Now, along with this dividend tracker, you're also going to receive my A to Z dividend investing ebook, which shows you how I personally started from $0 several years ago to now where I earn over $7,500 per month in dividends. So if you want this tracker and the ebook, go to the first link down below in my description and grab it today. Now, before we go through the SCHD dividend calculator and I share with you guys what things could look like in the future for myself and even for a lot of you guys, just to go over some of the basics for those of you that maybe clicked on this video, don't necessarily know too much about this ETF. I'm not going to do an entire overview on this ETF, but just to get everyone on the same page, SCHD is an ETF that's been trading for around 13 or so years, and its objective is pretty simple but very effective. It says the fund's goal is to track as closely as possible before fees and expenses the total return of the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index. Now, this index is made up of around 100 different holdings that all consistently over time have paid dividends, offered a decent starting yield, and grown their dividends consistently. Now, even the top 10 names in SCHD aren't necessarily the flashiest names across the entire stock market, but over time, this ETF's performance speaks for itself. Now, I say that because since inception, SCHD has offered anywhere from around 11 to 13% annualized returns, which is not bad whatsoever. Again, not necessarily the fastest growing ETF across the entire market, but very consistent and has offered slow and steady dividend growth, which is why a lot of us buy into it. Now, without wasting any more time, to get right into SCHD's dividend yield currently, the dividend growth rate over the last year, and over different timeframes, etc. This is going to be very important, especially if you're really looking at calculating out the future of SCHD's dividends over multiple different timeframes. Now, as of right now, where the ETF sits, it's offering around a 3.62% trailing 12-month dividend yield. Now, that's not necessarily a massive amount of money. You're probably going to earn $3 or $4 per year off of every $100 that you invest into this ETF as of right now. And of course, across the market, you can buy things like jepi. I mean, there's tons of different higher yielding ETFs and even stocks that can earn you a lot more cash flow a lot quicker. But if we look at the dividend growth rate over the last 12 months, let's say 12.23% is how much the dividend has grown over the last trailing 12 months. Now, to make this very clear, that means that whatever you were getting 12 months prior to that, you're now getting basically a raise as far as income goes around 12%. Now, over the last 3 years, we're talking almost 10%. Over the last 5 years, almost 12%. And to even things out, over the last 10 or so years, this ETF has grown their dividend consistently, more or less, around 11% per year. Now, some years have been bigger than others. Some quarters have even dipped prior to the previous year, but consistently over time, you can see one thing's for certain: the cash flow, the dividends that this ETF has paid have been going up and up to the right. Now, it's always sort of fun to look at multiple different timeframes, but for example, 12/10 of 2024, which was just as of recently, a 26-cent dividend, this is of course adjusted to the split, was paid out to investors for every single share that they own. Now, if we were to look back 10 or so years ago, back in December of 2014, for every single share that you owned of SCHD, you're getting around 9 cents per share for that quarter. So not only has the dividend doubled over the last 10 or so years, but it's almost tripled. And again, once you get to the hundreds or thousands of shares over time, this ETF dividends are especially going to start adding up. Now, that brings me into this custom SCHD dividend calculator that I built for you guys. Like I said, it's down below in my description, and you can of course use it yourself. Just click on the link, make a copy, and mess around with it and have fun. But as of right now, currently as my portfolio sits, I think I have somewhere of around 2,315 shares, maybe 2,320 shares of SCHD across all my portfolios combined. I haven't done an exact count in a little bit, and a lot of you guys might know that I have been slowing down a little bit on my SCHD purchasing just because I'm trying to diversify into some different names in my portfolio. But as SCHD sits as of right now, the trailing 12-month payouts was around 99 cents over the last 12 months. Now this means that the dividend income over the last year or so that I would have received based off of the current payout for SCHD is around $2,291.85, or if we were to look at that on a monthly basis, it's around $191 per month. Now I built this right here. You can look at a dividend growth rate of 7%. You can look at it all the way up to 12%. Now how much is SCHD's dividend going to grow over time? Your guess is as good as mine. Of course, I can say I have an idea or a hope of what's going to happen, but we don't necessarily know. I mean, for all we know, SCHD could lower their dividend one year and then double it the next year. We really don't know. But just based off of historical numbers at an 11% dividend growth rate, which is what we've seen more or less over time, if I stick with my 2,315 shares of this ETF and never buy another single share, this is what the next 10 or so years are going to look like as far as my dividend income goes. So as of right now, let's say I earn around $2,300 per year in dividends. Not bad whatsoever, but not necessarily crazy by any means. But what's craziest is that if we look at the next 5 or so years, again, if I don't buy another single share, my dividend income is going to double by not doing anything whatsoever. Now, stretching things all the way out till 2034, the 99 cents over time based upon an 11% dividend growth rate, we could be seeing almost $3 per share paid out annually for SCHD every single year for every single share that you have. Now, crazy enough, this would mean by this point, I'm earning around $540 more or less per month if we were to average things out, or over $6,500 per year in dividends. Now, the other crazy metric that I added in this calculator, which I thought was kind of fun to add, is I built out how much of an increase you're going to see over time per month, and this is by doing, once again, absolutely nothing at all. Now I get it, there's lots of other higher yielding ETFs and stocks out there, but because SCHD does offer so much dividend growth, or at least has historically, again, we don't know what's going to happen. It could be 7%, it could be 5%, it could be 12% or 14%. But over time, because this ETF has offered so much dividend growth, it's almost effortless to a degree to earn so much more in dividends year after year. Now this is also why I personally use this ETF as a great example in a lot of my videos to build up potential scenarios where an investor spends 50K or 100K or 25K into an ETF like this one when you're relatively young, and then just sit on it, reinvest into more shares, do it over and over again year after year, because the amount of money that you could be left with in the end is honestly shocking. Now what's crazy is that even if you own, let's say, 100 shares of SCHD as of right now, because of the dividend growth rate of around 11%, which is what we've seen historically, your dividend income still is going to go up substantially just with 100 shares inside your portfolio. Now of course, the longer term goal for a lot of us, whether you're 30, 40, or 50 years old, is to get to a point to where you own, say, thousands of shares, maybe 1,000, 5,000, or even 10,000 shares. And some of you guys watching this video, I guarantee already have that many. But as you can see, when you type in different amounts of shares inside this SCHD dividend calculator, it's kind of crazy what you can see happening in the future. So now that we talked about SCHD and I shared with you guys what, at least potentially based off of the previous dividend growth rates, this ETF's dividends could turn into in the future, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years down the road, of course, I'll just estimate it. I lastly have a question for you down below. Across all your portfolios as of right now, when it comes to SCHD, how many shares do you currently have as of right now? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.